when you have such a stark difference, I think, between the way that you make money and you sustain yourself and who you are when you're not making money and sustaining yourself financially, that like when there's such big distance, I feel like people struggle with that because you struggle to find the connection, the balance in that. Alternatively, as entrepreneurs and creatives, when our entire worth is tied to our output, that's bad too. That's no good, right?
Exactly.
That's
it's a fine
no
line.
good.
Yeah.
It's this balancing act. And I think it's constantly a balancing act. And with social media, like in a lot of ways that got better, in a lot of ways it made it worse. Greetings and welcome back to the Kiss My Aesthetic podcast. She's coming to us from across the pond. Welcome, Caroline.
Hello from London.
My gosh, I'm so excited. Hi from London. How is it over there?
Right now it's nighttime, so it's traditionally London, cold and dark. It's on brand. I like to say it's very on brand. Yeah.
That's true. That's true. For anyone who doesn't know you yet, can you tell us who you are, what you do, and who you help?
Oh, okay. Yeah. My name's Caroline Tomlinson. I'm an illustrator and artist, and I work with a variety of clients and brands, and it's invariably either making lettering, inky lettering, or some sort of visual illustration, be that of a scene, a place, or a person. And that can appear in many different formats, from books to wine labels to maps, you name it.
Oh my gosh. So an artist through and through. What is your medium of choice? Because this is an audio platform, unfortunately.
That I should have ticked off actually. So
all good.
I'm very traditional in how I start working, in that I use brush and ink and a bit of watercolor. And then I scan everything and bring it into a digital file, because obviously we are living in a digital world. But I do love that sort of, I'm always looking for like that tension, I suppose, between a finished piece and like a sort of scruffy original sketch, something elevated in between those two. That's kind of my sweet spot. And I can tell if I've gone too far digitally, because it looks a little bit too slick and it feels a bit sterile. So that's where I'm working away from. Yeah.
Okay. So we like grit, we like texture, we like evidence of the human hand.
Exactly. I always say I love a happy accident. Like when you make a mark and it's just absolutely spot. It's like a 1 in a million chance, and every once in a while it happens, and it's glorious. That kind of gets me excited. Yeah.
Oh, we're going to talk more about that for sure, but we have to give people some context. What's your background? What did you study? How did you land here? What things excite you? What are the things that brought you to being a full-time artist illustrator?
Okay, so this is do you want the long version?
Yeah, hit it.
Okay, so I feel that I knew I always wanted to be an illustrator or an artist. I think the two could be easily interchanged at times. But I think I was always aware of needing to sort of pay for myself, my bills, my rent and everything. So I sort of did a convoluted way to it that actually involved a really great deal of travel and change, which I'm actually now really grateful for. But at the time when you're sort of trying to get to where you want to be, it can be a bit frustrating. So I started the traditional route of going to art college when I was 18, and I went to study at a really glorious art college called Norwich, and it's like quintessential English, cobbled streets. It's like so perfect for an art college. And I had an amazing 3 years there, and then I graduated and I studied. So when I was there, I joined the graphic design degree, but specialized in illustration. So there was always a part of my brain that sort of knew I was going to be a commercial artist as opposed to fine artist. So once I graduated, I then moved to London and went to do my master's at Central St. Martin's. But this is where it was a curveball, and this is where there was all these sort of questions about what I wanted to do, I suppose, with my life, right, and my creativity.
Sure.
And I ended up doing a master's in textiles. So completely different skill set. Graduated from that. And that was great. It was 2 years. It was I think Central St. Martin's is incredible, but it's incredibly tough because that reputation comes from like drilling down to the very best that you can do. And that's an uncomfortable process. There's no there's no sugarcoating it, right?
Right.
So it was 2 years of lots of hard works and lots of meltdowns, if I'm honest, lots of sort of really working through some creativity issues, I suppose. And then I graduated there and ended up being a designer at a graphic design agency. So I sort of did this full circle where I started in graphic design, did a little detour in illustration, which if I was honest with myself, I would have stayed there because I loved it. But I wasn't, do you know what? It was a confidence thing. I don't think I was brave enough to say, this is what I want to do.
This is it. Yeah.
Because it's an incredibly unpredictable career, even now.
Absolutely.
It's not a guaranteed sort of paycheck, I suppose. So yeah, I went full circle and ended up at a design agency in Paddington in London. And I sort of just grafted and sort of learned all the realness, I suppose, of working and living in London and all the good things and all the challenges that come with that. And then during this process, and I sort of hopped around and sort of climbed up the ladder and was a junior designer and then middleweight and then senior. And then you start sort of getting to a point where you have to almost like lock in. And I was working at different agencies and I was freelance and I was thinking, I don't know if this is really setting my heart on fire. And I always knew, or felt rather, more excited when we got all the portfolios in from the illustrators for a job. And I would like pour over them and I would always ask to brief them or just be near them because I found them like creatures of fascination when they came in because they were doing it, they were living it. And then eventually sort of speed through like 10, 12 years of working in branding and design, I sort of burnt out and I was quite miserable. And I was like, I've got to get a grip of this. And I threw it all up in the air basically and left for New Zealand for a year because at the time I was too old. I think I was 32, which feels very young now. Yeah. But I was too old for an Australian visa, work visa. But I could get to New Zealand and that felt like a big enough shift and also quite a comfortable, it's the same language. It feels culturally not too jarring. So I was like, I can do that. And I'd be able to work in agencies there and sort of just work out what on earth I want to do. So I did that for a year and I went to all the agencies I ended up in Auckland and sort of did a bit of traveling around that part of the world. And that was only a year-long visa. And I think anyone who's done those sort of, I know it's called pulling a geographical, when you pull a geographical and then you sort of have to rebuild your life. A year's nothing. It's nothing. And it's hard, right? It's not easy. So that was a sharp learning curve. But the biggest takeaway from that was I had a little bit more time because I wasn't working continuously as a freelancer because people just didn't know me.
Sure.
And within that time, I sort of was gradually going back more and more into my illustration and sort of crafting and tweaking and getting in a mess and then starting again. And then I met Abe. It's always a love story in there.
Of course. Well. When traveling, absolutely.
Right. So what I should have said was from London to New Zealand, I was in a relationship with a South African. And after a year in New Zealand and trying to get into Australia, and I couldn't do it with work visas, I was deemed too old, which is beyond depressing. And then we went via Vietnam and Cambodia and ended up in Cape Town. And that was a great city to land in. And at the time, it's that glorious thing of hindsight. Looking back, it all makes sense. But at the time, it felt very much like I was in free fall. Which I was, and maybe that's not always a bad place to be. I knew that I didn't want to return to London, so ended up in Cape Town. The relationship did not work out. There's the spoiler, as it often does at that time in life.
Right.
And ended up staying in Cape Town for 5 years in the end. But during that time, just to sort of go back to the career side of things, I was working freelance and doing bits and bobs, but because of the, I suppose the pound versus the South African rand gave me a lot more time. And I literally just dug my heels in and was like, okay, if you don't do it here, you're not doing it anywhere. So I focused. And that was my biggest opportunity in life to just get to where I wanted to be. And that was building a folio, getting an agent, getting consistent work, and then grafting and going on. And that is how I became a full-time illustrator.
Oh, I love this story. I love this story. It is such a good story because it's so refreshing to hear people talk about like that. I completely resonate with that feeling that you just described of like, oh my gosh, I thought I was in free fall, but actually it was okay. Like, and actually I'm so grateful that I had this moment of like anything was on the table because it was the table. Like I wasn't locked into anything.
Yeah.
And like that to me is like an ultimate sense of freedom, is saying like, I could go anywhere and do anything. And the beauty of us being creatives and being creatives in this time period is that you're not tied to an office. You're not tied to one location. Like you can do your work from anywhere. And that like the crippling sense of like, that's so freeing and so paralyzing at the same time, because you're like, man, if I could do this from anywhere, then like there's really no limit to where I could go. But then you have to decide. And then you're like, same thing, right? You're like weighing currency conversions and time zones. And like now there's all these other like pieces and puzzles of the equation. But I mean, I love Cape Town. We talked about this for the 5 minutes before we hopped on this podcast. What does Cape Town, how do you summarize Cape Town to someone who's never been there? Because I really think it's a magical place.
I think that's the perfect word. I think it's magical. And as you know, I've just got back. I was there for 10 days. And I hadn't been for a few years, like maybe 5 years, I think. And it really reignited my, like, not that my love ever faded for it, but there is an energy there that really gets under your skin. And I think if you go, I've yet to meet someone who hasn't found it quite infectious as a city in a good way. And it's also really creative. And it's so breathtakingly beautiful.
Yes, the nature is unmatched. And I'm from Southern California, and I feel like we've got a pretty good gig here.
You've got a great gig, yeah.
It reminds me a lot of San Diego in a lot of ways, because you have this big city on the coast, you have access to nature, you have wine country on one side, you've got beautiful, Clifton and the houses, and then you're also realize like we're at the bottom of Africa, like an entire continent. Like there's so much richness and so much like beauty and like value of just like the absolute melting pot of culture that I don't know if you feel this way about like going to school in the UK, but we only spend like 1 semester on world history. Like everything else is like European history, American history. Like we don't get nearly a taste for the variety and the richness and the depth of culture in other places that I really didn't appreciate until I started to travel.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think there's a lot. I'm trying to rack my brains about history lessons, but it was a lot of World War II. It doesn't really get beyond that, and the monarchy,
right?
And that's at times a bit dubious, isn't it?
Yes,
highly dubious. So there's something. Also, I don't know about you, but because when you're on an aeroplane and you're doing a long haul and you look at the flight map, so from London to Cape Town, it's a straight line. And it just keeps trucking. And you wake up at like in the middle of the night when you're on that flight and you're only halfway down this enormous continent and you're like, blimey. So big. There's a lot going on down there.
There's a lot. And it just gives you so much more. Like it's crazy to see that someplace that's so far from home for me is so similar too, right? Like that there's so much that we have in common of like values and food and interests and music and how someplace that can be so far can also feel so familiar. But I love London also. I mean, I was just in London for 3 weeks in like November and I was like, oh, I could totally live here.
Oh, really? Do you feel that connection?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. Because I always think that's quite interesting because when you travel somewhere and some places you land, like I have it with Berlin, I'm like,
oh yeah, Berlin too.
And then other places I'm like, this is nice, but I just don't, whatever.
Yes.
It's like a secret sauce.
Here's what I'm attracted to about London. First of all, it's opposite to Cape Town. It is so drastically different than my hometown. Like it's not, you know what I mean? Like, and the history is fascinating. But what I like the most about London is the access to art is unmatched. Unmatched, like free museums. Are you kidding me? Like that's insane. Like we don't have that in the States at all. And just the ease, and this sounds so dorky and so American, it's like the ease of transportation and how clean the tube is. Like that's stuff that, oh my sister and I tell the funniest story because we took my mom to London, 2 years ago now. And my mom is like, didn't really start traveling until like her 40s, 50s with my dad, like wasn't part of her family growing up, but as kids, like took all of us traveling. And we took her to London and she's like very much like a taxi cab lady. And we told her, we're like, okay, we're going to go to this restaurant. Let's get on the tube. She goes, I've done the tube. Like, as if it was a roller coaster. I've already done the tube. I don't need to do the tube again. So now my sister and I, like as a joke, will like say that it's like, I've done the tube. I'm like, you don't understand. Like that we don't have this at home. Like this is so convenient and affordable. Like it's so dorky. That's the thing that like we talk about endlessly. But maybe from someone that lives in London, you're like, yeah, whatever. It's the tube.
No, I think there's always a love-hate with public transport, but I can appreciate the tube. Like, is this embarrassing? Like when I go to New York, I can't fathom the subway.
The metro. The subway's a mess. Yeah.
I can't. I always think, come on, you're not dumb. Look at the map. I
Yeah.
find it completely perplexing. Whereas the underground, I feel like, is almost, dare I say, idiot proof.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it's so charming, like all the names of all the stops. Anyway, I digress. We can talk about public transit probably forever. But I want to go back to the art stuff because you are in a great city for art. And talk to me about what it's like and how much you take influence from the shows that are on, the exhibitions, the special exhibitions. Like every time I go to the V&A Museum and they have something in that Gucci wing, I'm always like in there. Absolutely. Like there was just recently it was Sir Elton John's photography collection.
Yes, that was amazing.
Which was incredible. And like the few years ago when I went, there was like a retrospective on men's fashion. That was so good. Like they put on really incredible shows.
Yeah, they do. It went to New York as well, but I only saw it in the V&A, and it was the McQueen one, which I don't think I've seen a better. I think two of the best ones I've ever seen at the V&A were Alexander McQueen. It was, unbelievable. Just the scale of it as well.
Sure.
And then also there was a David Bowie one, and it blew me away. But I think that was something, actually. I don't really like to do pros and cons of cities because I think that's a bit ridiculous. But when I decided like Cape Town was sort of closing a chapter for me, I suppose, one of the big things that I suddenly felt a real pull for was like the access to art and being in something with such a hub of, it's literally everywhere, isn't it? And I've really tapped into the arts and the theatre here. And I've always said that if we're paying to live in a really expensive city, we're going to live properly and see things. And you have to sort of make the most of it, right? Because you're right, it is a massive blessing. And I did try, and I also try and mix it up because I think it's easy to get in a rut because the Tate's incredible and they've got that whole new building, which is vast. And then there's all the other ones like the White Cube and Whitechapel Gallery, and then all the little tiny ones in Soho. That are just incredible. But again, you only kind of, if you know, sort of streets to go down. I've completely blanked on the street name now that I'm talking about it, but there's so many of them that you could just spend a Saturday, and we've done that before. You go down for some brunch and just trot in and out of some of them. It's lovely. It's so special.
For the 3 weeks that I was there, I made it a mission that every single day I was going to go to a different museum, and I never ran out. There was always something to go to. I either went to a museum, a show, or an exhibition. Like those were going to be, that was my rotation, was like, okay, I need to go look at stuff that I like cannot see at home. And I cannot tell you the value of standing in person in front of artworks that you just like, it's such, people know it's such a difference in like seeing it online or on your phone. If your client sites are stunning but stuck on page 7 of Google, it's time to bring in reinforcements. The powerhouse women-led team at Searchlight Digital takes SEO and Google Ads off your plate so you can focus on what you do best, creating beautiful brands. Whether you're after a white label partner or strategic consulting, they make optimization feel a whole lot less overwhelming. Use code KMA100 at searchlightdigital.ca for $100 off a 60-minute Pick My Brain call. Because what's the point of great design if nobody can find it? Again, that's searchlightdigital.ca. Use code KMA100 and get found. But what does being in person, observing art, do for you as an artist?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think there's always moments for me where you can be physically stopped in your tracks.
Yeah.
And that's quite a special thing, right? You can be, because you can sort of disengage in an art gallery, because even the space and the quietness, if you go on it's actually a beautiful sort of moment of reflection, regardless of what's on the walls. But then every once in a while when you can walk through something, you can be going through the most amazing exhibition, you'd be like, I really love that, I really love it. And then something stops you physically. That is pretty exciting. And you don't get that on a book or on the internet or even anything like Instagram. It's just not the same. Because it's the scale, and you can go up to it, you can see how it's made or how it's been painted. Like I remember going up to, I think it was a Picasso, and it was like one of his more abstract, oily, like juicy amounts of oil paint on there, and you could see where it was a painting of a woman, and it was a string necklace of beads, and it was just these big blobs, and you could just tell he just squeezed it directly from the tube, and it was like so tactile and delicious. I love that. You don't get that in a book.
You don't, and I think it's really easy to get kind of like overwhelmed or get almost like visual fatigue from looking at things digitally.
Yeah,
that
definitely.
you lose the tactile. But I'm such a nerd for this stuff because I studied fine arts and art history, and my art history emphasis was on my great uncle was a collector, and so it was his collecting philosophy. And so I got to go like full deep dive into like figuring out the whole landscape and how you buy art and acquire art and developing your taste and all of these things. But my sister, who's a wedding planner and is not in the art world at all, loves going to museums with me because I always use it as a way to like test my own like filing cabinet brain of what I can remember from school. And I was like, and this one, it's just like, we'll tell her the whole backstory. And then I like to not look at the wall plaque and be like, if I had to guess, this is probably like late Renaissance. This is Italian. This is, like, I just love doing that stuff because it's just like my fun trivia thing that I do. But I'm curious, like, is there an art period or an art style, like you mentioned Picasso, that you are particularly drawn to? You're like, I could see a show of this all day long. Or do you like to bounce around?
Well, I do bounce around. I'm a little bit fickle, but I would say there's something that really, again, like physically stopped me in my tracks. And I think I was in there for at least 2 hours. It was female American artists from post Second World War. So it's the Expressionists.
Okay.
And they were all working really big, and they're working on raw canvases, and it's all done in these big warehouses in New York before New York was eye-wateringly expensive and the artists could sort of take over. And there's a real energy and passion there that I think I crave, because sometimes I work as an illustrator, I work A4 or A3 and it's scanned, and it's kind of, whenever I'm not working on a commercial brief, I'm like, I need to go back more to that.
Expressive,
sort of,
yes.
Yeah, loosen up. And that's quite a challenge when you've been like on brief and on a deadline to just look like the fact that these women, they really had to push against a lot of social restraints and political restraints, and they still did it. And whenever I think, oh God, I need to loosen up because I've been working, I just think, put your big girl's pants on. Come on, you can do this. You've got to just enjoy your space more in your studio. So that is a personal favorite. And I also love, and this is very cliche, but I'm proud to say I still adore Andy Warhol.
Yes. Okay, so this will be a fun piece of trivia. The great uncle that was the collector, he like brother to my great grandmother, who they were friends with Andy Warhol. Oh, so Andy Warhol painted a portrait of my great grandmother.
Are you serious? Yeah. And do they have it? Do you have it?
No. So this uncle donated, like had no children, donated his collection to the Philadelphia Museum of Art. So my great grandmother, my great uncle, their parents were all patrons of the Philadelphia Museum of Art and like donated almost their entire collection when they died to Philadelphia. Yeah, crazy little fun piece of trivia.
That's an amazing bit. And because I was in Philadelphia end of last year. What is it? The
Rocky
gallery?
Steps? Yeah, the main gallery. So, so if you read the Andy Warhol diaries, he speaks of Bonnie Winterstein. That's my great grandmother. So, great grandmother. Isn't that funny? But the craziest thing to me about that whole time period is that like Warhol, Picasso, Matisse, like they were all contemporaries of each other and like would hang out with each other. And I think that we, especially in like the art world, the art history world, like separate those because they're visually so different from each other.
Yeah.
And when you really just realize, like, especially post-war, like this time frame that you're talking about, like my great uncle was interviewed by BBC about his collection, and they started asking him like, oh, so explain your collecting philosophy. Like, how did you end up with all these pieces? He goes, oh, well, there was no philosophy. My friends and I were just getting drunk on martinis and buying what we liked.
Great.
And so like this whole, in my research paper in college, I'm thinking that he has this like super complex, fine eye for like Renoir and Matisse and all these like amazing Monets and like incredible paintings like Degas, like all of this Toulouse-Lautrec, like owned a bunch of these like lithographs and originals and sketches and all these things. And I'm like, oh, he must have known because like these are the giants in our history, right? Like these are the things we study in our textbook. But he's like, no, we were just like getting drunk and buying what we liked. And so I totally adopted that philosophy.
Good for you.
because I joined like a local wine bar here in San Diego with my friends and like definitely got drunk and like definitely bought a painting off the wall. And I was like, yeah, that one, like I'll take it. You know what I mean? So it's just crazy because it's like that's to the nth degree, but like they were all friends with these people. Like this is a time frame where that kind of art, no one could have realized that those artists would have been who they are now. And like this revisionist history, right? Of like we look back on these big giants and like they were just people too, and they were just artists too. You know?
Yeah. They're all, I think, because I read a lot of autobiographies and biographies about artists or musicians. And the thing that is a common thread throughout them all is you think that these big gods of their skill set of painters knew what they were up to, but they're all just winging it a lot of the time. And they have these sort of very dry spells where they don't know what they're doing. They're quite depressed and they're sort of battling through. And it's just sort of reassuring that it's all part of the journey. And it's quite a nice thing to be reminded that it's all going to make sense,
Totally. And to kind of transpose that on your own life, right? Of like, we've all hit those moments of feeling like, oh, what am I doing? All of my work sucks. Nobody wants what I have to offer. And like that kind of negative self-talk. And you're like, oh, wait a second. This is just like maybe part of the human condition of being a creative.
I think it's 100% that. And I sort of encourage it because I've obviously got a lot of creative friends and illustrator friends and artist friends. And I'm like, we have to talk about it. We have to talk about when we're unsure, when we're uninspired, or when we're feeling like we're not getting enough work or any work. That's part of it. And you can only continue on this path if you're honest with the good and the bad. I find it's important because we all are a lot more clued up now on mental health, obviously. But that is the ability to own the good and the bad is so important. And it is it's not an easy career move. I often think I don't have a backup plan. There's nothing. This has got to work.
That's how I feel about my job. I'm like, you know what? Like I found myself like even just journaling recently, like a lot of my friends are dealing with like they're hitting that 10-year itch in their career where they're like, they're burnout and they're just exhausted and then they're anxious and then they feel like they don't have the portfolio confidence to go out and find their next thing. And then there's this whole kind of like endless cycle of just like self-doubt. Maybe I got too comfortable and maybe I'm shit at what I do and all of these things. And I just remember writing my journal like, I'm so glad I work for myself.
I
was like, I'm so grateful. Like, yes, you have ups and downs with clients, but those to me are like ups and downs are like little hills. They're not these like huge mountains and huge valleys that some of my friends who are on the corporate side of things like really seem to be suffering from right now.
Yeah. And I think that totally resonates with me because on one hand, I've got lots of sort of freelance creative spirits and souls with me, and then some more corporate friends. And I sometimes wonder if where we've been sort of out on a limb a bit more and we've had all these, like you say, ups and downs, and it's like a continual learning, you sort of also craft your identity into your passion, your job. Whereas I think there may be, and this might be a spicy topic, more of a disconnect. So the identity almost sits separate from a job, or there's a distance, which is sometimes healthy, right? But when you're having that 10-year itch, which is exactly what caused me to start questioning everything and leave London, I think that's where if they're not adjoined in some way, or if you're not passionate enough about it, it sort of disintegrates. And it doesn't matter how good the salary is and all the benefits. It's just, it all feels a bit hollow. And that's what I was feeling. It's not hitting something.
Because the two have to inform each other, right? I was just thinking about this. Are you watching Severance right now?
No, I haven't. Is it really good?
Goodness, it's so good. It's so good. And the people who listen to this podcast are gonna be like, Michelle, you're not really bringing up Severance again, are you? But the concept, the general concept, right? Yes. It's like you get this chip implanted so that your work life is completely separate from your home life. So you're innies and outies. Innies are the ones that work, and outies are the ones that don't work. And then, but obviously, like chaos ensues, and we've got to figure out like what's real, right?
Right.
But when you have such a stark difference, I think, between the way that you make money and you sustain yourself and who you are when you're not making money and sustaining yourself financially, that like when there's such big distance, I feel like people struggle with that because you struggle to find the connection, the balance in that. Alternatively, as entrepreneurs and creatives, when our entire worth is tied to our output, that's bad too. That's no good, right?
Exactly.
That's no good.
Yeah.
It's this balancing act. And I think it's constantly a balancing act. And with social media, like in a lot of ways that got better, in a lot of ways it made it worse.
I think you know what I mean?
Like, it's just like, how do you find that balance? This is something I've had to deal with in the last few years of my business. It's like, okay, I am not my business and my business is not me. But like, I'm in a relationship with my business. Like we have to like each other. We have to get along with each other. And sometimes my business pisses me off. And sometimes I'm a really bad employee. You know what I mean? Like, so how do you deal with that balance between like work you and personal you? And how much do you feel, or have you ever felt that the two bleeding into each other was either good or bad?
That's a really good question. And I think depending on the week or the day, I'd probably answer it differently.
Sure.
So sometimes I think that's just me. I'm a complete package, and it's so mixed in. It's probably way too messy, and I need therapy for that, because that's probably not
You're like, we got to
healthy.
start dividing and conquering this this big
Yes.
old mess. Yeah.
And then
Funny.
other weeks where probably I think do you know what, where it gets all a bit messy and there's no sort of boundaries and there's no separation at all, is when I've been really, really busy. So I've put my head down, I've been in my studio a lot, or working away from home at home, and it all gets a bit messy in your head and everything's a bit out of whack. And then when there's those glorious, and they are fleeting because it is a constant balancing act, where everything's sort of going along in the right direction and you can see where you want to be and you can see what you're doing now and how it all makes sense, and you feel healthy with it. It's like a healthy feeling as opposed to a all consumed. I'm getting better at not being all consumed, because I'm getting better at flagging things to other people, like my agents. I'll say too much or not enough, or whatever it is.
Sure.
And it's I think it's a communication you have with others and with yourself, and being honest when you're just out of whack with it, where it's all a bit, you've let everything fall down on top of it.
Yep. I think honesty is key there. And I think that comes with repetition, right? It's like anything, like getting reps in the gym or becoming a better artist or doing any of these things, is like the more you do it, the easier it gets to use that muscle. So I feel like the more I'm honest with myself, do I like this project? Am I challenged? Am I enjoying my work? Am I enjoying the podcast? I've had seasons of being like, I never want to do this again. Like I've definitely been like, too much work. Don't want to do it. But now I've found a system that works for me. I'm like, okay, actually, I really enjoy this. I really like it. So I'm curious, for me, I know that I need every quarter to have some kind of international trip on my radar, because it is so life affirming for me.
Yes.
And so like it gets all of my creative neurons firing, and it just like, this is like, I feel electric when I can change my environment and change my surroundings. I feel like I am a better boss. I'm a nicer sister and daughter and all these things. How does travel or your environment impact your creativity?
I think we're cut from a similar cloth there. I would agree. I think there's something about, this year I've got so many trips booked already. It's insane. And it's literally at one point in the summer, especially in Europe, it's like one every few weeks.
Nice.
And then a couple of long hauls sprinkled in, because it is so important I've got this love for a routine and then a hate for it when I've gone too far. So just when I start to bore myself and feel uninspired, and going to my studio is a bit of a schlep, I'm like, it's time to go away, because there's something about landing in a foreign place, especially one you've never been to, and ideally one that's very culturally different to where you come from. Everything wakes up, doesn't it? And you're like, whoa, okay, I'm back. Like wherever I was in like a grey monochrome world, and now I'm back. So I think I'm similar in that everything, changing my space, and even how I live on a day-to-day basis, even if it's for a really short while, like 3 or 4 nights, it can work wonders. And I come back with a whole new energy. And it's not really about lying by a swimming pool, although that is valid.
No, also nice. Right.
Also nice. But a lot of the time it's about literally getting out there and getting a bit lost, right? Somewhere far away.
Yes. Yeah. And the confidence that you gain in navigating a space that's foreign to you, whether that's a literal foreign country, or it's a new type of group, or it's a new medium, or it's a new skill set. But like the practice of staying curious enough to seek that out, even if you know it's going to be uncomfy or it's going to be, different than your day to day. I'm so grateful that like I figured that out about myself early on, because I think that even like I work for myself. I live in San Diego. It's a great place. The sun's out most of the time. Awesome. But there's still that like the monotony of the routine. Also, it just like feels like a cage sometimes. Like it feels like, like I'm just heavy. I just don't feel like I'm not curious in things. I'm not taking pictures of stuff. I'm not sketching. I'm not going to new restaurants. I'm just going to the grocery store and coming home being like, I should save money. But like when you're traveling, you're like, well, I've got to go try this coffee shop because I've never been there before.
And I may never come back again.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Definitely.
And just that, like the sensory overload of an inspiration that you get from being in a new place. It sounds so cliche, but it's nice to hear that another artist feels similarly.
I feel like you're actually saying everything to the letter about how I feel about it. It's like this constant, I got so excited about, I mean, this isn't even a new supermarket, but going to a foreign supermarket. When I was in Cape Town, I love their supermarket, Woolworths. It's like the most magnificent. And my friend was laughing at me. She was like, I've never seen someone so excited.
Okay, but I have this as well. I love a foreign supermarket.
I love a foreign supermarket.
Because like, why is it so fast? Okay, first of all, the packaging design pops off always. Sure. Yeah. There's such interesting combinations of like foods and snacks and drinks and like things that you don't get at home. I was obsessed. I'm curious if you were as well in Cape Town with Fitch and Leeds pink peppercorn tonic for your gin and tonics.
Oh no, I didn't see that one.
Oh my gosh. Okay. My friends and I were obsessed. There's this like pink peppercorn tonic because I didn't know this, but Cape Town is the gin and tonic capital of the world, apparently.
Did not know. Did you go to the Secret Gin Bar?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's a good G.
But they have a lot of the bars will have like the gin and tonic on tap. But there's a company there, South African company called Fitch and Leeds that makes all of these super fancy tonic waters. And they had a pink peppercorn one that I think about to this day. I'm like, how do I get this to come to California? So next time you're in Cape Town.
Yeah. Hang on, I'm just thinking now. Has it got does it feel quite like a heritage brand?
Yes.
With I think
black with like a sailboat or something to the front. Like there's like a nautical element to it. And they have different color cans for the different flavors. But so funny. But I'm like you, I love a foreign supermarket. Like I will go out of my way just to like browse through a foreign supermarket. What is that about?
I don't know, but it's the most exciting. Like, honestly, I've got a trip to Tokyo in November. I know I'm going to spend a large percentage of my time in food, like grocery shopping, but not even necessarily buying stuff.
Not even buying stuff, literally. No. So there's a kind of similar phenomenon here is when I was traveling and then coming back to San Diego, I got really into hosting dinner parties. So I'm hosting a dinner party because the time we're recording this, White Lotus comes back on Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
Big set in Thailand. So I made like a Thai dinner menu and I'm going to go to like the Asian supermarket, H Mart in San Diego. And I'm just going to look at everything. I'm going to go down every single aisle. I'm going to look at ingredients I've never seen before. I'm just going to have a hell of a time because it's that like genuine curiosity and interest that I think for artists, like it's following that and being like, what's this all about?
I know, right? It's because you're probably, if you're anything like me, and I'm feeling we're quite similar in this way, you're going to stick to your shopping list, but there's going to be some random purchases as well.
Of course.
And that's creativity, isn't it? Because you're like, what can I do with this? I don't even know what this is, but I'm going to give it a go. And I think that's just another outlet. And actually, I can always tell when I'm starting to get a bit bored at home. You know, when you don't know what to cook for dinner? And you're like, oh, God, what to make? That's when you need to go to an Asian supermarket and spice things up, actually. It's
spice it up.
Literally spice it up.
Yes.
So I could easily spend many an hour in a foreign supermarket and will. I do.
Well, we're going to have to figure out where in the world we can cross paths. I'm so jealous that you're going to Japan because that's very high on my list. But I think the first thing we have to do is go find a supermarket together. That's it. We're just gonna have like a supermarket date. But for people who want to actually see your artwork, which we didn't even really get to talk about on this at all, where can they see your stuff, follow you, find you, maybe buy some of your work or work with you in any capacity? Let's plug you at the end here.
Okay, so you can find me on Instagram. I've got quite a long handle. It's Caroline Tomlinson Illustrator. It's a mouthful. And then also online at just carolinetomlinson.com.
Oh, love. Well, thank you. Anything else that anybody should know about you or opportunities that you're looking to kind of manifest in 2025? Like what projects are you looking for?
I had this amazing project just before, not just before, a couple of years before lockdown, I suppose. And it was one of my dream scenarios that I would like to recreate with an agency or maybe a hotel. I was basically flown to New York to capture an area of New York as an artist's visual diary. And it was for a development that was going up in Midtown. And I just walked around New York for 5 days drawing.
So like almost like an artist in residence program?
Kind of, but much looser because, you know, they were literally like, please draw X, Y, and Z, but the rest of the time, you know, do what you want and capture
it
in your style. If anyone wants to do a collaboration, I would love that.
Ooh, we love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I know it's late where you are, so we'll let you go. But if you guys like today's episode, don't forget to send it to a friend, save it, share it, and reach out. Yeah. Thanks so much, Caroline.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.